Welcome to the Joys of Binge Reading, the show for anyone who ever got to the end of a great book and wanted to read the next instalment. We interview successful series authors and recommend the best in mystery, suspense, historical and romance series, so you'll never be without a book you can't put down. You'll find this episode's show notes, a free ebook and lots more information at thejoysofbingereading.com. And now, here's our show.
Estelle Ryan took quite a risk creating Dr Genevieve Lenard, the brilliant body language expert and international investigator who's the lead character in her art fraud mystery series, because Genevieve also registers on the autism spectrum. Hi there, I'm your host Jenny Wheeler, and today Estelle explains why she needn't have worried. Readers love Genevieve's honesty and vulnerability, and the series has grown strongly, with a 13th book coming soon. But before we talk to Estelle, just a reminder, the show notes for this binge reading episode can be found on the website thejoysofbingereading.com. That's where you'll find a full transcript of our chat, plus links to Estelle's books and website, as well as details about how to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. But now, here's Estelle. Hello there, Estelle, and welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Jenny. It's lovely being here, visiting with you.
Yes, it is. Now, look, beginning at the beginning, which is where I do like to start because I see it as a narrative, was there a once upon a time moment when you decided you wanted to write fiction? And if there was there some sort of catalyst for it?
Yes. I do believe that in my life, there were more than just one moment that led up to this. But there was a defining moment for me when I was in grade 4. And we were finished with our syllabus for the semester, and the teacher asked me to tell a story. And I got up in front of the class and I told them about how the aliens landed in our backyard the night before, and all the conversations I had with them and the stories, and I described them. And after this, the kids loved it. And after this, the teacher told me that if I did not write children's stories one day, I would be making a huge mistake. And it stuck with me. I'm not writing children's stories because my imagination is not quite in that direction. But I think that was that opened up my mind to more suggestions from different people, different situations that led me to this point where I'm now writing fiction.
Yes, that's a great story, and it sounds like you were made for fiction, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah. I really remember the story about the aliens. Where did I get this from? But it kind of explains why when I'm not reading crime, I am reading science fiction. It might explain that too, aliens.
So your Genevieve Lenard series has now reached book 12, which is a fantastic feat in itself. But am I right in thinking that you actually started out in romance?
That is correct, yes. I wrote for a South African publishing house, and I wrote in Afrikaans, which was an incredible challenge for me because it's not my first language. And the language itself, the vocabulary, is not as extensive as English. And it was an incredible learning curve for me and very valuable. I had to learn how to describe things when I didn't have the right vocabulary. And I also realized, and I gained an incredible respect for romance writers, because I realized just exactly how hard it is to write a really good, engaging romance that is light enough to enjoy and silly enough in its own way, but also that is emotionally engaging. And I wrote 7 very short romance novels. And And then I thought, no, this is not my genre. This is not what I want to write, and this is not my language. It was really hard. And when I wrote the first Genevieve book, it was like coming home. It just felt so comfortable. But I had learned so much writing the romance novels. It was fun too.
Yes, yeah. So you moved to mystery. So, but why didn't you move to, say, science fiction at that time?
That's a very good question, science fiction. Me and my beginning with aliens. Because as much as I do enjoy science fiction, my mind is totally blown by the skill that science fiction writers have in their world creation. It's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. They make up these entire different universes. That's not quite where my mind goes. And I've always been an extremely avid mystery reader. And I love the puzzle. I love the mystery. I love the complexity of the plots and all of that. I just loved it. And that is why I decided on mystery.
Yes, great. Now, Genevieve Lenard is an international art-themed series for those who haven't come across them before. And Dr. Lenard is a high-functioning expert in body language who is also on the autism spectrum. Did it feel risky to develop this character at the beginning? It really is quite a courageous decision to make, I think, to have a lead character who is so different from the, quote, norms.
And she is difficult.
Yes.
She's a difficult character. Yes. When I started writing Genevieve, when I started developing the series, I wanted a character that had an internal struggle, but I didn't want it to be of the average mystery novels that you find, the detective who is an alcoholic, or the detective with major marital problems, or who has a horrible boss, or one of those situations. I wanted somebody who was fighting her own internal struggles and winning, even though sometimes she's losing too. And I realized that to be true, to keep the integrity of the spectrum of autism, I couldn't make her neurotypical. I couldn't make her easy. And I was very pleasantly surprised at how well received she was in the first book, because I expected a lot more negative reviews because of her, because she is a challenging character. But I wanted it, and I was willing to take the risk.
Yes, and it's to your credit that although she is difficult, you make it understandable why she is reacting that way. So perhaps you manage to keep the public sympathy for her the reader's sympathy as they're reading.
I try to. It is actually quite interesting. The first book I started writing in third person. And I think I got to just about the half, no, maybe not that far, 1/3 into the book when I realized this is not working. And I changed it to first person, and telling it from her perspective puts us into her mind. And I think this is when you are talking about keeping the public sympathy and creating an understanding of what she's going through. It's through putting us in her mind as she is going through this, which gives us a much better understanding of her thought processes, of her panic, of her obsessions, and all of that.
That's right. And you have often been asked, I know, if someone close to you is autistic, because you do have a remarkable empathy for the character. And I know that you've given this reply a number of times, but how do you answer that question?
No, that is the simple answer. I don't have anyone close to me, and I am not on the spectrum. Where and how the empathy comes, I don't know. I just, when I started doing the research, I just felt such a connection and such an understanding of what these people are going through. I can't claim to truly understand it because I am not on the spectrum, but Yeah, it's there. It's there. But no, nobody close to me. I do have quite a few people close to me with other mental health issues, most of it being depression, which I think we are all familiar with. And I don't know. I think this is also something that encouraged me to use a challenge that is not often spoken about and not often depicted in fiction in a very positive way. A lot of the characters on the spectrum in either on movies or TV or even in written fiction are very awkward, to the point of unlikable and rude, although Genevieve has her rude moments. And also, they are often, they seem like losers, and I didn't want that for her. And I think that a lot of people who are struggling, whether it is any kind of being non-neurotypical, being on the spectrum, or fighting with depression, the pressure to be like everybody else is overwhelming at times. And I wanted to write a book where it's okay to be different.
Yes, and I think that you saying about being a success, that's really appropriate too, because quite a number of books that have mental illness are often quite depressing in themselves. The people aren't particularly successful in their lives, are they? So,
yeah, and even though and nothing in Genevieve's life is orthodox, her relationship is not, her friendships are not. Definitely not the way she approaches it. And obviously I had to create a circle of friends around her that were maybe more understanding than the average person on the street. But since none of them live orthodox lives, it made it much easier to create them as more understanding. But that's it. I didn't want somebody who was failing in her own life, even though it really is a daily struggle for her.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, you mentioned some of the people around her, and several of your secondary characters have become so strong that they could probably warrant books on their own. And I'm thinking of Vinny, the bodyguard chef, for starters. I gather readers have been asking you if you're going to do a Vinny recipe book.
Non-stop, everybody's asking me for a recipe book, and I have such a giggle about it. I think I should stick with what I'm good at. The recipe book, I can't even write a fictional recipe book. I enjoy cooking, I do, but I'm a lazy cook. I just throw everything together until it tastes good. This is my kind of cooking, which I suppose that could also be a recipe book. But Vinny would definitely be very unhappy with me. I'm more like Francine, add more spices. Yeah, so no recipe book yet. Maybe, never say never. You may never know.
And do you think that Vinny might even someday have his own series?
No. Again, never say never, but it's a very good question that you're asking there. And no, I don't see that. I don't see any of the other characters veering off on their own. The team is far too interwoven and working together for me to want to separate one of them.
Yes, sure. Now, each book is themed around an artist. So for those who don't know, you get Gauguin, Braque, there's quite a wide spectrum of artists that are featured. How do you choose your artists?
Every book is a different process for me choosing the artist. Sometimes the art itself plays an important role in the plot. Sometimes the history of the artist plays an important role in the plot. Sometimes the era plays an important role. And depending on that is how I make the decision. And at the end of the day, there's also some more pragmatic factors that I have to keep in mind, like the artist's name. It has to fit on the cover. If the name is too long, it has to be squashed up or divided to fit on the book cover. And if it's too short, it doesn't look good. So I also have to keep that in mind. But yeah, there are quite a few factors. I think it was with Dante, and that was interesting, how I wrote most of the story before I actually, the artist clicked with me. And I had to go back and do some editing as well, because the plot really involves Dante, both Dantes. And that was, every book is different.
Now, that's interesting, because I was going to just ask you next, because it just had occurred to me, whether you decided on the artist first and then that really dictated the plot. But I can see that isn't how it happens.
No, not at all. Not at all. There are a few things that I would say dictate the plot before the artist. It would be I make a decision what kind of technology I want to include in the specific book. Each book has its own weird kind of technology, not just technology. The one was bioweapons. The other one I had drones. I had 3D printing, all these kind of things that's included in the books. So I also, that for me is maybe a little bit more important in developing the plot, where the artist is also important, but it plays a different role.
Yeah. How have readers responded to Genevieve, and what do they tell you that they like about her and the books generally?
As like I said earlier, I was really surprised at how positive the response was to Genevieve. The feedback that I get a lot about her is how many people can connect to her and understand and identify with her. Even people who are completely neurotypical. There are certain characteristics in her. I think also the fact that she's so honest about who she is. That really connects with people, because there's a freedom in that a lot of us don't feel, because society doesn't give us the freedom to just be who we want to be. There's so much unspoken social pressure that we feel we have to comply to. That she's real. I get that people love the fact that she's so real and that she's trying so hard, that she's making an effort to not change, but to understand and incorporate other thinking into her life. About the books, this for me, I think, is one of the biggest compliments that I got about my writing and about the books, is so many readers talk about how when they read a book, it feels like they are visiting with good friends or with family. And they really love the team. Yeah. They love the friendship. They love the understanding, the support, the relationships. They love Vinny's cooking, and even the arguments that they have between them in the team, and the struggles that we'll go through. I think that is the thing that the readers connect with, and this is what they enjoy.
Yeah, you've said that you're a coffee shop aholic and that you do a lot of your writing in sympathetic coffee shops. So I just can't imagine being able to write in that environment. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about your process. How do you not get distracted?
I choose the coffee shops very carefully. The music is important. If the music is too loud, I can't focus. If the music is not coffee shop background music, but it is too energetic, or it's not for my mood for that day, for that matter, then I can't. I'm very good with cutting out external noise. But if somebody's having an incredible, fun conversation next to me and there's a group of people chatting and laughing, that's also distracting. And then I pack up my stuff and I go either home and work there or another coffee shop and work there. So I don't always not get distracted. There are times that it's, or I'm just not in the mood. It really depends on my mood, because I can work in my office or in the living room or in the garden or in a coffee shop. It all depends on the mood.
Yes. I'm interested that you mentioned the music, because in the Genevieve books, music features very strongly. She uses music to calm herself and to help her to concentrate. And I wondered if music was a personal passion of yours.
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. It's a huge part of my life. A classical, I have a classical background in music, but from that, a very deep love for jazz and blues. And when I'm cleaning my house, I need heavy metal. That that gives me the angry energy I need to clean the house. But no, music plays a large role in my life, and really, what I did when I started this series is I just took all the passions I have in my life, politics and all the interests I have, and history and geography and technology and music and psychology. I threw it all together and stirred it around a bit and started the series.
Yes, yes. Well, moving away from Genevieve to a more general focus, is there one thing you've done in your writing career more than any other that you'd feel might be the secret to your success?
No, really no. I think it is a combination of everything. Maybe in one period it is more of one thing, in another period is more of another thing. But at the end of the day, the secret is to sit down and write. That is the secret, which is not always that easy. But maybe I don't know, maybe the secret in my life would be my self-discipline, the fact that I am so determined to have a routine, to do the writing and the research, and to do the best that I can. But I can't point out one specific thing, no.
Certainly, to have written 12 books in a series, you have got persistence and determination in oodles.
Well, some people might call it being stubborn, but I call it determined. No, determined is a much better word, yes.
Now, as well as your fiction, you've written for numerous international magazines and you've edited a lifestyle magazine. You mentioned some of the topics, actually, that fascinate you, so we might be sort of repeating ourselves a little bit. But how has that journalistic work influenced, or how is it reflected in your fiction?
It's definitely the curiosity that comes with, as a journalist, this is the best and the worst part of our character is being curious, of asking questions and more questions and more questions. I remember when I was very little, I didn't ask just the normal why questions. I remember I was younger than 4 because we stayed in one town until I was 4 years old. And it was before that I was sitting outside with my dad. He was polishing his shoes. And I said to him, because the one was on the news, and I said to him, Dad, can you explain to me exactly what is the problem with this Middle East peace thing? Why can't they just make peace? And I remember my dad looking at me with shock on his face. So I've always had quite a lot of interest in the world around me, and that definitely, I love the journalistic part of being able to ask questions with the excuse of being a journalist, and asking questions and getting those answers gave me so many new perspectives. That I realized that life can be so much more interesting looking through different sets of eyes. So definitely huge influence on my writing.
And the lifestyle magazine, what kind of focus did it have? Was it interiors or gardens or a mixture of everything?
No, the lifestyle magazine was for expats, and it focused on surviving in a foreign country.
Okay, yeah. We call this podcast The Joys of Binge Reading because it caters for people who love to discover an author and then read everything that he or she has written. And I think that you probably have been a binge reader yourself in the past. Can you share with us some of your favourite authors and the ones you'd recommend to other people?
Yeah, definitely. The top of my list would be Daniel Silva. I'm a huge fan. I love his work. Lee Child is his books are just guaranteed entertainment. It is a lighter reading than Daniel Silva, but I love it. And I love larger-than-life heroes that he has. Jonathan Kellerman is another one that I enjoy. I haven't recently read any of Nelson DeMille's latest books, but I did do a lot of binge reading on him. And Ian Rankin, also enjoy his books.
Yes. Oh, they're all very, very big names, aren't they? They have made their way in the world. That's right, yeah. So circling around from the beginning to the end, at this stage in your career, if you were doing it all again, what would you change, if anything?
Oh, that is such a hard question. It is the typical, if you had known then what you know now, what would you have done differently? A lot. But then I wouldn't have learned what I know now. If I were doing it all again, I don't think I would change anything. I think I would, from the beginning, try to have a better routine and to find, to force myself more to relax, because I kind of get into this, I do a total Genevieve hyper-focus, workaholic thing. But no, writing itself, no. I think I needed to go through the process to learn what I had learned. So I'm quite happy with that.
And publishing has changed a lot over the period you've been working too, hasn't it?
Incredibly. The whole landscape has changed with self-publishing and of course, with ebooks and how the marketing happens and how easily accessible books are now versus before. And it's amazing. And it continues to change nonstop. It's quite interesting to watch.
That's right. So what is next for Estelle as a writer? What are your projects that are under development at the moment?
Book 13. That is what I'm busy with at the moment. So the next Connection Genevieve Lenard book. And then I have something else that's in the back of my head that is separate from the Genevieve series that I'm playing around with. But I'm not finished with Genevieve yet. There are still many more stories that needs to be told. But for the moment, right now, and I'm also very linear in my work. I only do one book at a time. I marvel at writers who can write 2 or 3 books at the same time. How is that possible? My mind simply just works in one line. So I am doing one book at a time, and at the moment it's book 13.
And how long does it take you to do a book, Estelle?
Oh my goodness. It really depends. The planning, the writing. The planning can take me 1 week or 3 months. The writing can take me 2 weeks or 6 months. It depends on so many things. Most of it, my mood, which is really not such a good thing. But, then life happens and, I need to get the plumber in and that takes the whole day and then I lose a day of writing. You know how it goes.
Yes.
So no, I generally work on about 4 to 6 months, which usually lands up being 5 months per book.
Yes.
From beginning to end.
And it does sound as if you're an outliner and plotter rather than a pantser, as they call them.
Oh, completely. Again, how is it possible to sit in front of an empty screen? I think it's amazing that writers can do that. Other writers can do that. I can't. I need a plan. I need to know where I'm going. So yes, I do a lot of planning. By the time I actually start writing the narrative and the dialogue, I have everything planned. I know exactly what's going to happen in the next scene, the next chapter, until the end.
I think that might be a journalistic thing as well, because when you've worked as a journalist, you know that you've got a structure that you're working to and it gives you confidence.
That is true. I never actually thought about that. That's a very good point that you're making. Mostly, but I always have been a planner, and I think maybe this is also why I enjoyed the journalistic side of things, because I enjoy sorting out the structure before I start writing, so I know how to form and how to lead the story to the next point. So, good point. Very good. Thank you.
I'm a planner as well, and I just couldn't imagine sitting down, and it just would feel just wrong to do it that way.
And it's so interesting when I listen to other writers, when they say they can't imagine planning a book. I read one writer who said that she planned a book, and it was, for her, it was the most torturous moment to write the first 2 chapters, and she gave up. She simply couldn't write that book. It was no joy, and it felt wooden. The characters weren't real. So she scrapped it and she started, with an empty page. So I just know, not for me. I can't. My brain, and it's so fascinating how different our brains work. There is really no one size fits all in this creative industry of ours.
Look, one thing that I've wondered, have any of the autistic professional associations and societies picked up on Genevieve and made contact with you? Have you had any approaches from people either congratulating you or asking you to talk at conferences and that kind of thing?
Not talk at conferences, but I've had quite a few people from the Autistic Society reach out to me. A lot of people who have autism in their family, so it's not that professional. But I had two professors who deal particularly in the autistic field, and I've had quite a few nurses and teachers who say that when they read Genevieve, it was like one of the children in their class, or one of their students, or one of the people who they work with every day. It was exactly that, which for me is so important, because I want to be true to the spectrum. I don't want to normalize this and romanticize it. So that for me was important, the feedback that I got.
That's great. Look, we are coming to an end. Where can readers find you online?
Oh, that's very easy. EstelleRyan.com. That's very easy. I'm also on Facebook. I'm quite active. I'm not very active there, but I have photos of when I travel, and I'm quite engaging with with the readers, with the fans on Facebook. But the easiest is EstelleRyan.com.
That's wonderful, Estelle. Look, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure to talk.
Oh, Jenny, thank you. It was lovely speaking to you.
And we had a few false starts, but we got there, didn't we?
Of course we did. Not a problem at all.
That's wonderful. Well, you have a great day, and I'm about to relax at the beginning of my weekend.
I love this. There's a few times I have conversations with people in Australia or with people in America, and it's just, your day is ending, or I'm speaking to somebody in America and it's like they are still in yesterday, or their day is just beginning. I love this. It's just, it's such a very big, small world, isn't it?
It is. So all the very best. I'll watch for the next Genevieve with interest.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much too. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Joys of Binge Reading podcast. You can find all the details and links for this episode at www.thejoysofbingereading.com. We'd love to hear your comments and suggestions for who you'd like us to interview next. And if you enjoyed the show, take a moment to subscribe on iTunes or a similar provider so you won't miss out on future guests. Thanks for joining us, and happy reading.
The Joys of Binge Reading podcast is put together with fantastic technical help from Dan Cotton and Abe Raffles. Dan is an experienced sound and video engineer who's ready and available to help you with your next project. Seek him out at dcaudioservices@gmail.com. That's D for Daniel, C for Charlie, audioservices@gmail.com, or check our show notes. He's fast, he takes pride in getting it right, and he's great to work with. Our voiceovers are done by Abe Raffles, another gem of sound and screen. Abe has 20 years of experience on both sides of the camera/microphone, as a cameraman director and also as a voice artist and TV presenter. I think you'd agree that his voice is both light-hearted and warm. He is super easy to work with no matter what the job. You'll find him at Abe, A-B-E, at pointandshoot.co.nz. As I say, the full details in the show notes on the website. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Hopefully see you next week. Bye.